Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Of course, this is the Raw after WrestleMania. This Raw tonight was from the Barclays in Brooklyn, the Barclays Center. And tonight's Raw, after coming off of a surprisingly good WrestleMania last night, this show tonight, this Raw after WrestleMania, it was very underwhelming. This show sucked tonight, in my opinion. Thank God I didn't go to this show tonight. But it was a very underwhelming show for Raw after WrestleMania. It didn't even feel like a Raw after WrestleMania show. Just felt like a typical same old Raw every single week. But we did have some good things, or decent things that happened on tonight's Raw, which I'll get to. But Raw opened up tonight in Brooklyn, of course, and the crowd was on fire tonight. The crowd was very loud because it's a Brooklyn crowd, it's a New York crowd. You're gonna expect a crazy, rowdy crowd that's full of energy. But Raw opened up tonight with Seth Rollins coming out, the new Universal Champion. Brooklyn crowd starts chanting to Rollins, you deserve it. And Rollins says, oh, we all deserve it. And he says he was waiting a long time to raise the Universal Championship over his head. Seth goes on to say that he feels terrible today. And he goes on to say that he feels like he got run over by a Mack truck. Goes on to say that he took suplexes, German suplexes, and an F5 on the floor. But he ended up getting back up. He says he took everything Brock Lesnar had to dish out and got back up. And Seth says that he got a little news last night after the match. Goes on to say that Lesnar and Paul Heyman took a flight to Vegas for some meetings. Which Seth says, oh, they could both stay in Vegas because Brock Lesnar is no longer the Universal Champion that he is. So Seth goes on to say that he is now the reigning, defending, fighting Universal Heavyweight Champion. And that he is going to be a champion that everyone can be proud of. So that was a decent choice of words from Seth Rollins. And then we have a surprise here. The New Day end up coming out. Yes, the New Day was on Raw tonight. Jeez, my head is so spinning after watching this fucking underwhelming show tonight. Yeah, this is what 3 hours does to you every Monday night. So the New Day ends up coming out, and Kofi says to Seth that he can see the look on his face that he's confused. Biggie ends up saying they are here on Raw for a cause of celebration and that they couldn't wait for SmackDown. And so Xavier says last night Seth Rollins became Universal Champion when he defeated Brock Lesnar. Of course. And he goes on to say that Kofi did the unthinkable when he won the WWE Championship last night. And Kofi says when he was backstage last night at WrestleMania, he was watching the winner take all match with the women, Ronda, Charlotte, Becky. And he says, what is he saying is how about him and Seth have a winner-take-all match tonight. Meaning the WWE Championship will be on the line and the Universal Championship will be on the line. And Kofi says, you know, there will be no Shield, no New Day, just one-on-one, title versus title. And you know, this is a pretty good idea. You know, but everybody, you know, was freaking out, saying, "Oh, I hope Kofi doesn't lose the title tonight." But I was like, "No, that's not going to happen. That wasn't going to happen." And so Seth ends up accepting the challenge. So we got that match later on in the show. About to say it was a decent opening to Raw with Seth Rollins coming out and having those good choice of words to say, saying how he slayed the beast. Then we had the first match tonight. Curt Hawkins and Zack Ryder versus The Revival. This is a rematch for the Raw Tag Team Championships. Oh my God. It was a boring match. It was the same shit. Same shit that we saw last night. So that was basically it. You know, if you saw the match last night on the pre-show, nothing much special happened in the rematch tonight. But Curt Hawkins and Zack Ryder ended up getting the win. Sorry about that. I was saying Curt Hawkins and Zack Ryder ended up winning the match. The Revival ended up hitting the Shatter Machine to Zack Ryder. And that's when Curt Hawkins ended up coming in and ended up rolling up Schoolboy Pin on Dash Wilder. There you go. Curt Hawkins and Zack Ryder retain the Raw Tag Team Championships. I'm like, really? It's unbelievable. But all in all, boring match. It was the same shit that we saw last night. Like I said, if you watched the match last night on the kickoff, you didn't miss anything in the rematch tonight. And then we went to Baron Corbin coming out, and he says, for weeks he listened to us whine and cry that Curt needed someone much better for his final opponent at WrestleMania. And he goes on to say that he showed us that Curt doesn't deserve to be in the same ring as him. And we had the crowd booing him. The crowd was chanting, you know, asshole and, you know, shut the fuck up. That's what we heard from the crowd. And so Corbin ends up calling the Brooklyn crowd dirty New Yorkers, and that he's used people doubting him, and he proved them wrong. And he goes on to say that he deserves a gold medal of his own. So Kurt Angle ends up coming out. Kurt Angle comes out, says to Corbin that last night he was the better man. That Corbin was the better man. And that his career, that Kurt's career, is officially over. And Corbin's career is just getting started. And so we had Kurt Angle end up wishing Corbin all the luck in the world. I'm like, really? That was me when Curt said that. And then he tricked all of us, and because they both ended up shaking hands, both Kurt Angle and Corbin, and then Curt ended up saying, "Bad luck." And I was like, yes. And he ends up giving Corbin a angle slam. Then he locks Corbin into the ankle lock, and that made Corbin retreat out of the ring. So Kurt Angle was still in the ring, and lo and behold, Lars Sullivan ends up making his debut finally, because Lars Sullivan was supposed to debut months ago, and he didn't debut because he went home because he had like anxiety, and there was all these reports of Lars Sullivan having anxiety, and that his WWE debut was going to be put on hold. But he made his debut tonight, so he ended up coming out. He and Curt were face to face, and then we just see Lars Sullivan then slams Curt Angle, and then he goes to the top. Lars Sullivan goes to the top, jumps off, and headbutts Curt Angle. So yeah, so that's what happened. That's how the segment ended. But there we go. Corbin coming out saying, "Oh, everybody was whining and crying and telling that someone much better should have been Curt Angle. That the people wanted someone else to be Curt Angle's final opponent." It was just boring segment up until Lars Sullivan came out. So it was cool seeing Lars. It was cool seeing Lars Sullivan. Then we had Alexa Bliss versus Bayley. This match won for like 10 minutes. But kind of hard to watch as a Bayley fan. So, Alexa Bliss, she just dominated through the match. She just beat up on Bayley. Alexa Bliss got the win, hit the DDT on Bayley, and that was it. Alexa Bliss wins the match. So, but all in all, it was a 10-minute match. It was nothing great happened here. Then we had Becky Lynch ended up coming out, and the crowd ended up cheering for Becky. They were chanting Becky, Becky. And Becky says, 9 years ago she worked at a bar not too far from from where the Barclays is, and she ends up saying to the crowd that we did it, and that for months, Ronda and Charlotte went hoarse, saying their records were too strong. And she says that, but at WrestleMania, when all was said and done, this woman walked in with nothing, left with everything. Becky says she knows she's not the strongest, fastest, or most athletic, but she does have a good theme song. And the crowd, was singing. And she ends up saying, leaving home at 15 taught her to be a master of one thing, and that is survival. She says, she'll always persist, overcome, and find a way to win in the end. So Becky goes on to say that whenever Ronda is done sulking, the man will be here to slap her head off. She goes on to say for Charlotte, she's sure the McMahons will hand her the tag titles or whatever soon, enough. Becky says, she respects the roster coming for her. But she says, remember, she's the redhead in leather with 2 shiny titles ready to slap the taste off of them all. And so Becky ends up leaving the ring, and lo and behold, Lacey Evans comes out, Wavy Evans. And she ends up coming out, she ends up waving as always. and she stops at Becky, and Lacey ends up hitting Becky, and Becky's still standing there, and she ends up chasing Lacey Evans down, and the both of them start brawling on the ramp, and Becky ends up locking the disarmer on Lacey, but the referee ends up pulling her off before she could get the full disarmer on Lacey, and pretty much that's basically how the segment ended. But it was cool. It was a cool little segment with Becky Lynch. Then we had Aleister Black and Ricochet versus Chad Gable and Bobby Roode tag team match. This match, it was meh at best. Aleister Black and Ricochet are fun in the ring, but match itself, it was slow, and the crowd was doing the wave during the match. And when the crowd does the wave, that there is a problem. So, but when I went to the last Raw event, it was like 2 years ago. Sorry about that, but I was saying when I went to Raw 2 years ago, the Raw after SummerSlam, and they did the Cruiserweight match. I think that was before 205 Live came on, when the Cruiserweights were still a part of the Raw roster. Everybody was doing the wave because they didn't care for the match, and that's pretty much what you're going to get from from a New York crowd or Chicago crowd. One of those big cities. If a match is boring, you're going to get people doing the wave. You're going to get people doing beach balls, which there were beach balls tonight, and I'll get to that. So, but the crowd was doing the wave during this match. But Aleister Black and Ricochet end up getting the win. Ricochet end up hitting like a code breaker on Chad Gable to score the win for him and Aleister. Then you had, after the match, Bobby Roode end up attacking Ricochet from behind. So, all in all, match was meh at best. And we had Elias backstage. He says last night he had the greatest performance planned, and it was ruined by John Cena and his rap music. Elias says it's okay because tonight the McMahons gave him time to perform his rock opera, and he will show no mercy to anyone. And he goes on to say if someone interrupts him tonight, there will be hell to pay. But it was just a meh backstage thing with Elias. And then we had what was supposed to be Dean Ambrose in his final match on Raw and in WWE. It was gonna be against Bobby Lashley. And so we had Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush make their way out. Lio Rush had the mic in his hand, and he was trying to say something, but he didn't know what to say. So Lashley ends up taking the mic, and Lashley ends up telling Ambrose, don't worry, when you're gone, I'm going to take care of your wife, meaning Renee Young. And when Lashley said that, it pissed off Ambrose, and Ambrose went right after Lashley. The match never got underway because the bell didn't ring. It was just Ambrose lashing out at Bobby Lashley, going crazy. It was just a brawl. We saw Ambrose end up tossing a chair to Lashley, like throwing it at Lashley. Then he ended up sending Lashley into the ring post. Lio Rush got involved, but Ambrose took care of Lio. Lio ended up going into the barricade. And it went on stage. Ambrose ended up hitting a DDT on stage to Lashley. Ended up throwing Lashley into the LED board on the stage. And Lio Rush was trying to get involved once again, but Ambrose ended up running him off, and that gave Lashley the chance to spear Ambrose. Because before all that, Ambrose was taking off all the stuff off the announce table. But like I said, Lashley ended up spearing Ambrose. Then Lashley ended up driving Ambrose through the announce table, and just Ambrose was laid out right there. And Renee Young came to check on her husband, and she had like a concerned look on her face. But how disrespectful! This was disrespectful to Dean Ambrose. WWE just disrespecting Ambrose's maybe final appearance on Raw and in WWE. It was just fucking disrespectful to send him off like this. So Ambrose is going to get that, possibly going to get that AEW call later on, because he may be going to AEW. We all have to wait and see. But there's been people saying, "Oh yeah, Ambrose, is going to go to AEW." Sorry about that again, but I was saying, Dean Ambrose might be on his way to AEW now. So then after that we had Mojo Rawley. He was talking in the mirror, which it was a broken mirror, and he was saying, "Oh, where have you been?" And it just showed, a painted blue like design on Mojo Rawley's face. So it was short. Then we had Sami Zayn end up returning tonight. It was good to see Sami again. He's been out for 9 months with an injury. So Sami Zayn ends up returning and says his schedule is wide open and he can go for a match right now. And so Sami Zayn ends up calling anyone from the back out for a match. And so Finn Balor ended up coming out. So we had Finn Balor versus Sami Zayn, and this was for the Intercontinental Championship. Which, why would you put the Intercontinental Championship on the line when, we all know that, we all would know that Balor is just going to retain anyway. But the match itself, was decent. Balor and Sami went back and forth. It was good to see Sami compete again in the ring after he's been out for 9 months. But Balor ended up winning the match. Coup de grace on Sami Zayn. And Balor ends up retaining the Intercontinental Championship, which we all knew was going to happen. There was no way in hell that Balor was going to lose the title since he won it last night. Then after the match, Sami Zayn gets back on the mic, and he says he really thought coming out here tonight would cure what ails him. but all he did was reinforce what he's realized over the past 9 months. He says it generally seems like we miss him. So Sami ends up saying, honestly, from the bottom of his heart, that he didn't miss any of this or any of us. So Sami went from being a babyface to a heel all in one night. He goes on to say that, it turns out that WWE is a super toxic environment, and not because of the McMahons or the other WWE superstars. It's because of the crowd and our ugliness. He goes on to say that he lives a very meaningful and fulfilled life, but our lives seem so empty and devoid of meaning that we only get joy and satisfaction out of being critics, as what Sami said. He also continues to run us down as would-be voices of reason. Goes on to saying that overnight we've become the evil overlords of WWE, and all that he cares about is doing what's right. And he's like, it's all he cares is about doing what's right, and not coming back and save WWE or take it over. He says, the right thing to do is come out here every week and hold each and every one of us accountable, because no one else will. And he ends up telling us, he'll see us in hell. And so he just goes off, ends up arguing with the fan. So, sorry about that again. Keep getting interrupted. But, that's what Sami Zayn had to say. And I fully agree what, Sami had to say, because he ended up saying, people judge everyone and everything but themselves. And that's really true, because there are a lot of people out there who judge everybody by, maybe how they look, maybe how they act, or maybe, they did something wrong. So they take, the people judge, people, that, look like that or do something like that, but, they judge everybody but themselves. And, it's kind of true. It's true what Sami said. And I fully agree what he said. So, all in all, Balor versus Sami Zayn, it was a decent match. It was good to see Sami Zayn back in the ring again. Then we had Dana Brooke. She was being interviewed, and she ends up congratulating Becky Lynch as the Raw and SmackDown champion. She says there is a line forming of women to challenge Becky Lynch. And she says she is certainly not at the back of the line anymore. And if there is opportunity for her, she is going to seize that moment. Well, Dana Brooke is meh. Then we had Elias. He was in the ring. He said last night Cena ruined his second WrestleMania in a row. And now 1 year from now, it will be a different story. Elias goes on to say John Cena isn't an artist or a musician, but rather a selfish, insecure, fake humble piece of garbage. So he goes on to say, in the spirit of Brooklyn, he's going to show everyone just how easy it is to rap. He says he doesn't need his guitar, even, and and he spits a few bars, and he goes on to say, white guy thinks rapping is easy kind of way. And he was saying, finish up by saying the next one to interrupt him is a dead man. And so, lo and behold, The Undertaker, yes, The Undertaker made an appearance on Raw tonight. He wasn't at I heard he was at WrestleMania, but I guess he was in like the like Sweet Box or something. But there was an article saying that Undertaker was at WrestleMania, but just didn't appear on the show. So Undertaker ended up coming out, made his way down, and right when he was in the ring, Elias was freaked out, and he slowly goes to leave the ring, but Elias was going to stand his ground against the Undertaker. And so he turns away. Elias ends up turning away and starts charging at Undertaker, which Undertaker ended up hitting a big boot to Elias. Then ended up choke slamming Elias. Undertaker ended up choke slamming Elias. Picked him up. Then he went for the tombstone pile driver on Elias. That was basically the segment. But it was cool seeing the Undertaker. Since he didn't appear last night at WrestleMania, it was a good moment that he came on Raw tonight. It was good to see him. And then we had Kofi Kingston versus Seth Rollins, winner-take-all match for the WWE and Universal Championship. This match started out okay, but was ruined in the end. I pretty much knew when they announced this earlier in the show, when Kofi announced it. I knew there was going to be some sort of DQ coming, and I called it because I guess Kofi wins this match by disqualification because Cesaro and Sheamus end up coming in. They ended up attacking Kofi, and Seth comes in, goes after the Bar, but the Bar ends up beating them down, beating both Seth and Kofi down. And Seth and Kofi end up taking down the Bar. They got back up and they started stomping away, taking out the Bar. And so Seth Rollins ends up getting on the mic and says he knows why the Bar interrupted the match like that. And so Seth says to Kofi that we will finish this some other time. And Seth says he wants the Bar, Cesaro and Sheamus, to face him and Kofi right now. So we had the match, which was the main event. Seth Rollins and Kofi Kingston versus the Bar, Cesaro and Sheamus, tag team match. This was a okay match, okay tag team match. It was back and forth between them. Seth and Kofi, I gotta say, made a decent tag team together. The wrestling here was okay. But Seth Rollins and Kofi end up winning the match. Kofi ended up hitting the Trouble in Paradise to Cesaro. And then we had Seth Rollins end up hitting the curb stomp on Cesaro. Seth Rollins went for the pin. And so Seth Rollins and Kofi end up winning the match. And that's how Monday Night Raw ended tonight. Raw after WrestleMania. So, there you go. That was Monday Night Raw tonight. I thought it was a very underwhelming show. Had some good, little good things about it, but overall, like I said, very underwhelming show. So it was a pretty shitty show also tonight. So yes, anyways, that's it for my Raw review. That's it for tonight's Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. And definitely give this video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And there will be no SmackDown review tomorrow night. Once again, I'm working late, so I'm going to be DVRing SmackDown, watching it on a different day. So the SmackDown review will be up some other day this week. So yeah, so till that review, I'll see you all later. Bye.